Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to join you live. It's almost 8 p.m. in Singapore, so my dog is sitting there waiting for her nightly walk. It's my form of care, pet therapy. But I was going to spend the next, 20 minutes just sharing with you how we're taking a design approach to care in Singapore in a more holistic manner. And thank you, Michaela, for inviting me to just share a different way of how we're thinking about keeping our society healthy and aging well. So with that, I'm going to just share my deck. If you can just give me a second, that should work, I hope. And I think all of you hopefully can see. Perfect. Great. So let me go ahead and start and talk about redesigning care, the Singapore approach. Michaela mentioned we are a UNESCO City of Design since 2015. And I think a lot of you would recognize Singapore as a very modern metropolis, very innovative, open economy. And if you've watched the Netflix series on the Blue Zones, we were one of the 4 locations that were featured. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. And great. So just hello again. My name is Dawn. I'm the Executive Director of the DesignSingapore Council. We are a government-related body that focuses on everything design and to use design to make society and the economy a much livable, lovable, and a happier place to be. Design is a core element of our nation. We are a very young country. I think unlike all of you over there, we are 59 years old this year only as a country, 59 years of independence. But in that 59 years, we went from a third world mud swamp to a first world country with top first-class facilities, the top healthcare system that's accessible, that's not bogged down by insurance, and that everybody has access to affordable care. And this is a really important principle on how we think about nation building, not just about care, but about every aspect of how we build the building blocks of this country. It's designed with a purpose because we have nothing natural to us, again, as a young country coming out of British rule. So I wanted to lay that foundation because that's an important aspect of why everything else I'll share later on will reflect this aspect of very intentional design. The question is, why are we redesigning care? And what does care mean? Now, when we talk about health or we talk about healthcare, a lot of times we're talking about interventions at the disease level, at the therapeutic level, right? But here in Singapore, we wanted to talk about care much earlier and much more upstream because these are the statistics that we're looking at. By 2050, we're looking at a third of our population over the age of 65, which is the retirement age. And we're not reproducing ourselves. We have our fertility rate fell to below 1 for the first time in our history. So we're in dire need of ensuring that the aging population that we have continues to remain contributive and active and healthy. And if you look at the 3 other stats below that, you'll see that, well, 1 in 10 above the age of 60 has dementia. So we've got that as a burden on the state as well, right? People are trying to look for ways to remain engaged in society. 3 in 4 don't intend to retire before 65. And there's 2/3 of persons with the disabilities are actually on the fringes. They're not participating. So we have a long way to go still, even as a first world country. So with these statistics, it made us question, well, how will we care and how will we be cared for in the future? That's not just at the hospital level, not just as the doctor intervention level, right? How do we care? And from a design perspective, we went back to the core of what it means to care. And it comes back to empathy, being able to empathize with the people we're trying to care for. Now, why is that important? If you think about any hospital experience you've had, or at least maybe I should speak about it from my perspective, both my parents had terminal illnesses, and in the 2 decades of caregiving I've had for them, I have experienced care from the perspective of the system. So this is how it makes the system more efficient, and therefore this is how it's done. I'll give you an example. We had to send a tissue sample of my dad's tumor to a lab external to the hospital for testing. In order for that to happen, I had to take a form to the oncologist, get him to sign it, personally take the form then to another part of the hospital building, to the medical records office, for the medical records office to then register that, and then send the information to the tissue samples registry for them to extract that and then send that to the lab. 2 weeks later, they called me and they said, your tissue samples are ready for collection. And I'm like, what do I do with these tissue samples? Do I bring them back, put them in my fridge? Like, I can't eat them. What do you do with them, right? And they said, no, you requested for them, so it's our job to call you. I said, no, can you send it to the lab? They said, no, that's not our job. Our job is to call you. You are the one who requested it. Now, from the perspective of the hospital and the system, that's their SOP. It's the system. It's how the things flow. But from someone navigating that, right, there was very little empathy because I'm trying to caregive already someone who has a terminal illness. And on top of that, I have to navigate all this paperwork just to send something to a lab for testing. So empathy is a really important part of designing for care. Because it also then creates a dignified experience. How many of us know somebody in a nursing home, an old age home, a retirement home, where they have not been able to exercise autonomy, and therefore slowly they lose their dignity, or they've not been empowered to exercise their mobility, even day-to-day independent actions? You start to lose some of that dignity. And when you start to lose that dignity, you lose empowerment. And so you reverse that. Designing for empathy creates dignity that empowers individuals. It's a virtuous cycle that continues to give back. That's a really important principle for how we think about care. And perhaps the place to start is, are we even asking the right questions? Now, what do I mean about that? Now, for those of us who, if we're in a company or an organization or a system, we tend to ask questions about how do we do this from our perspective, from the company's perspective, from the system perspective. But are we asking the questions from the people who are on the receiving end of care, the caregivers? What does it mean for them to exercise autonomy, independence? How does the environment mean? What is the process to navigate? What brings them joy? What are their challenges? When was the last time we exercised the empathy and asked these questions for them? And so we think about designing for care in 3 Ps. And I'm going to start with the first P, which is in policy. And the question we ask ourselves is, what if we could design care services around the needs of all the users? And we make it easier for them to access and adopt these services, but still respecting their unique experiences. So we have what we call Smart Nation Singapore, where we try and digitize actually all the services that the government delivers to citizens. And we try to do it from cradle to grave. So basically from the time you are born until the time you die, different milestones in your life, you will need different services from different government bodies. And so we try and create easy to access digitized services for you. So for example, if you look to the far left corner, you'll see a little green logo that says Health Hub at the far bottom left. Now that's actually an all-in-one health app for every citizen in Singapore that you could log in and look at all your doctor appointments across all the public health system in Singapore. You could book your next blood test at the community clinic. You could book to see your doctor, and it's all in one place across the public health network in the whole country. So there's no more, I got referred to this specialist at that hospital, but I came from a community hospital, and therefore my records were not moved. It's all unified right now, as long as you're in the public health system. Right? Another one, if you look to the top middle with the blue P, as a car driving citizen, actually that's my favorite app. It's the parking app. And so in the past, if you were to park in public open air parking lots in Singapore, you have to pay using these little coupons, right? Or it would be sort of a gantry that it will automatically deduct as your car goes in and out. But If you're not in one of those automated gantries and it's just an open lot, if you are overrunning time, you're going to have to walk back to your car to put another coupon out. It's not practical. And the parking app basically lets me do that from the cafe or the restaurant app. It will remind me you've got 10 minutes left, and I just extend and I pay. And if I finish early, I just go back to my car, end early, and I get a refund on a per minute basis. So it makes my life easier for a citizen service that the government provides. Last one to talk about, just to give you an example, on the far bottom right, there's a little red box with an I. That's the National Digital Identity System, what we call SingPass, Singapore Pass, SingPass. And that is the verified digital identity of every citizen in Singapore. And we use that to log into banking apps, insurance apps. You could buy, and you could renew your passport online, all through this digital identity app. And that will stay with you throughout your life. So end to end, we're trying to show that, hey, you know what? The government actually cares about the services that you engage, right? And this is through your experience, we make it as easy as possible for you. Some of the things that we do in policy, we realize that, look, as we move more and more towards a digitized, whatever verb, noun that you use, the senior citizens, the older residents and citizens, they tend to get left behind. It's not always easy for them to latch on to the next government app that we are doing a service for example, right? And so we have a Digital for Life movement where both for senior citizens as well as citizens with certain disabilities, mobility challenges that may be on the fringes of the main care system, we empower the community centers in each district to run programs that give them access to digital technologies. You can see one of them up there trying one of the goggles, but also we run classes to help senior citizens learn how to, for example, use Facebook, or, well, now I guess it's TikTok, right? Or whatever is next. We teach them how to use their banking apps that they may actually not know how to use left on their own. And through this, we were able to progressively phase out physical checkbooks. My father was dead set about digital banking because he's like, oh, I'm going to get hacked. Someone's going to steal my money. I still want to use physical checks. But through this, we were able to get seniors on board and to show them how to do this securely, basic banking transactions. And we were able to phase out physical checkbooks over time. The other part about care that tends to get forgotten is the caregivers. And I speak from experience as a caregiver to, as I mentioned earlier, both my parents. It takes a toll, but nobody actually asks you how you're doing. It's always about the patient. You go see the doctor, it's how's the patient doing, right? You go to an occupational therapist, it's always about the patient, right? The only time anyone asked me how I was doing was actually when towards the end of my father's care, when he had to move to a hospice. And the very first question that the hospice staff asked was, how are you doing, to me as a caregiver? And that was so powerful because until then, I didn't realize how burnt out I actually was just supporting the day-to-day care needs of my parents. And so here, what we did was the Care Lab, which is one of our design partners, actually created a whole caregiving playbook to help the Ministry of Social and Family and Ministry of Health in Singapore to deal with how do we support caregivers in their journey in providing for care. Because we all know it takes a village. And if we just rely on the health system itself, we could not do it. So we need the caregivers also, and we need to support them such that they can continue this journey. And a lot of times, the care journey is a long one. So let me move on to, from policy, the next P is product. So how do we design for care and product? How do we design products that enhance inclusivity, but also in that we give them back their self-esteem, the dignity, as I mentioned earlier, and in giving them the dignity to empower them. One of the President's Design Award winners in Singapore, so that's the highest accolade for design that's given by the President, the Office of the President in Singapore. These designers, Lecker Architect, they actually came up with a hack for IKEA chairs. So they took the IKEA catalog and they hacked it so that you could look at how to do little tweaks to your IKEA furniture at home to make it dementia friendly. And they came up with a whole book modeled on the IKEA catalog called Pet Care that anybody with a few tools, you could basically hack dementia friendly furniture. So you can see some of the the instructions right there. You can see the additional sort of handles that they put on the chair right there. So all of this was created as a handbook just to make care a much easier process if you're DIYing at home. And here we've got a couple of other products that our designers have created to empower individuals that may not be medically chronic interventions or end-of-life care, but it's day-to-day that they have these illnesses that requires support. So at the bottom right, you see the rollerball. Now, eczema is a big problem in Singapore because of our weather. It's hot and humid, and so it flares up very easily for a lot of people who have it. And creams and all that, temporary relief, but you tend to scratch, and once you break the skin, you cause infections and more problems. And so this designer created this rollerball. By the way, it keeps getting sold out every time she comes up with another batch. Where through very clever industrial design, you can just basically roll over to soothe the itch on different parts of your body without breaking the skin, right? And this is eczema chronic, but cannot be cured. On your left at the bottom, wearable is a local designer, Claudia. She does what she calls adaptive clothing. These clothes are designed for people with mobility challenges. And so, for example, if you had a stroke or if you amputated an arm, think about how you would dress yourself on a daily basis. You couldn't zip, you couldn't do any buttons because that requires dexterity of 2 fingers, right? And so she created a series of clothing where you would basically drape yourself with one arm and it would clasp through this very clever magnetic claspings. And this gives back independence and autonomy to people who have lost it for something very basic of dressing yourself, right? And right at the very top is a dementia tool that another designer came up with at Inru. She won the Lexus Design Award for this. And it mimics sort of day-to-day nostalgic activities through an app that the dementia patients can mimic their daily activities just to bring back memories, but also get some mobility going. This is one of my favorite examples of how we redesigned care. And I want to say, I put it under product, but actually it's really about product and experience. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the traditional Chinese lion dance. It's a very celebratory, joyous occasion. We use it to herald in prosperity, good luck. If you open a new office or Chinese New Year, we always do this. It's usually done by professionals because there's a lot of jumping and stunts, right? But this group of designers basically said, why can't the seniors do it? And so if you can see some of the, I don't know the video, there we go, I'll just say that again, right? They redesigned the entire costume for senior citizens by mimicking their daily exercise activities that they do at the Senior Active Aging Center. So very simple things like where they do their hand stretches over their heads or forward with the diameter of a hula hoop, because that's the stuff that they use at the Senior Activity Center. And through that, they were able to redesign the whole lion dance and let the senior citizens participate in it, including those in wheelchairs. I move on to my third P, which is designing for care in place. Right. So what if we design places that allow access, you encourage autonomy, you build community, and through that access, you promote dignity? This picture here is a place in Singapore called Enabling Village, for the very fact that it is the only place in Singapore where the entire thing was designed to allow access at all levels. It's got Singapore's first and only wheelchair-friendly children's playground. If you've ever seen a kid on a wheelchair be able to play on a swing with his friends, that's really empowering, very, very heartwarming. And it's got hearing loops everywhere. So regardless of whatever you may be suffering, visible or non-visible challenges, this place has accommodated for them. This is a housing development that we designed to allow for intergenerational living. Now, we all know the statistics show that when children and seniors interact, everyone is better off for it. The children learn empathy for the older generation, and the older generation are more enlivened, there's more energy, right? They're more engaged. And so we put out this housing development called Kampong Admiralty. Now, Kampong just is a local word for village. So basically, we're talking about a village here. And I don't know if you can see the fine print on the left picture. It is actually a cross section of the entire development, and you will see that it's different amenities at different parts. So you've got the garden deck, which is actually a community garden that the senior citizens can go and do their gardening. They plant herbs, local vegetables. They help each other out as a community garden. But there's a children's playground. There's a childcare center somewhere there, so they can drop their grandchildren off, go and meet their friends for a coffee at the food hawker center, and then go pick their grandchildren up again. There's polyclinics, so the community doctors are all there as well. And there's a kidney dialysis center. So what we've done is we've put together intergenerational needs to encourage that interaction, to promote better empathy at the younger generation, but also better active aging at the older level, right? And this whole thing is designed as a garden, as you can see on the right side. Speaking of gardens, our motto is a city in nature. Not a garden city, not garden in a city, but a city in nature. Nature takes precedence. And through the years, we have reinstated and redeveloped a lot of our nature, our parks. For an island that's only 730 square kilometers, land is precious. And so if you ever looked at a Google GeoMap of Singapore, it's actually covered in green, because we really believe that it's important for this to be a lovable and livable city. We have to bring nature back. These are all public parks, free to access. And why is this important in redesigning care? If you remember during COVID, going outdoors was the best and only way that you could get out. And we want to encourage people to move, take a walk, go and meet your friends, right? Enjoy the birds, the greenery. It's tropical all year round here. You don't have freezing winters. Get out, right? On the far right, Jurong Lake Gardens, when we redeveloped that place, the landscape architects that were responsible for it, they monitored the migratory birds, and they said that there were bird species that had left Singapore permanently that had returned after we redeveloped and reinstated those gardens. Just goes to show, nature is pretty amazing. And last but not least, one more designing for care place that is public. And this was featured in the Blue Zones on Netflix, if you caught that. These are outdoor fitness areas that you'll find them anywhere all over Singapore, where the housing districts are or where the public parks are. So that's why I put HDB, which is a Housing Development Board, and then MParks, which is our parks, National Parks Board, right? And you can see that we've put various fitness equipment there. These are all reinforced because they're exposed to the elements, but there's all sorts of mobility things that you can do. We found that the young people, old people, children, they all use them. But more importantly, for the older generation, they start to make friends when they meet each other doing simple exercises over there. And we've seen groups form over time because these are at their housing estates. So they live there, they come down, and they meet each other, they make friends, they exercise, right? And they move on. One more thing about community building and designing for care in community is also, when I talk about empowerment, it's also letting them serve themselves. And so this is a space called Good Life Makan. Makan in our local language means to eat. So good life eating essentially is what this is, right? And seniors volunteer to prepare meals for other seniors in this facility, and they take turns and they decide on the menu, they get the supplies, and then the rest of the community comes in and they dine and they commune together. And food is a really important part of our culture. It's a really important part of communing and community building. And so in this way, the seniors take it upon themselves, they're empowered, and they serve their friends, and their friends serve them. And so all we're trying to do here is to show two things. One is when you design to empower, you give a lot of autonomy and dignity back to the people that we're trying to care for. But also, everybody in the community can do something, and you are empowered to design. It is a virtuous cycle, and that's what we're trying to do with redesigning care here, taking it not out of just the healthcare facilities, where sometimes it's too late by the time you have that intervention, bringing it a lot more upstream and providing the empowerment to redesign the day-to-day. I didn't talk about the council, but this is a quick hello of who we are. We're the National Agency for Design, and I mentioned earlier, our vision is for Singapore to be a great city, lovable city by design. Please feel free to scan any of your QR codes, and I will stop sharing, and I think they will also share the slides with you.
Thank you, Dawn. This is absolutely phenomenal and important for all of us.